It's time to get educated on the craziness impacting K-12 classrooms and college campuses around the world. This is the Dr. Duke Show.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Dr. Duke Show for this week. We have got a packed program for you today, so just please, as usual, hit that share button, and let's get the message out to a broader audience. Today's show is sponsored by Mike Lindell and our friends at MyPillow, and this week, back to basics. The classic MyPillow is going back to its roots, offering their famed Giza Elegance pillow for just $30. That's just $30 for a wonderful pillow that you're going to use in a lot of different ways. That's a saving of 66% when you use the code Dr. Duke. That's DRDUKE. Okay, today we start in Florida, the land of Ron DeSantis, where a powerful new bill designed to protect the innocence of children and the freedom of parents is, of course, getting the full spin treatment from the radical left and the media. Now, this is a complete, utter, total, exacting, beautiful, obvious story, right? Let's protect children through pre-K through first, second grade. That's it. Let's keep sex, all sex, even heterosexual sex, out of the classroom for 3 and 4 and 5 and 6-year-old kids. Should be the most uncomplicated thing in the history of the world, except, as we've been telling you now for 2 years, the project of the progressive left, particularly when it comes to education, is to force children as young as 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 to understand mindlessly, because they can't really think it through, mindlessly understand and accept alternative sexualities, including and not limited to pedophilia, as we've discussed on other programs. So the left can't let go of this. They cannot allow children to be children all the way through first or second grade. If they don't get them young, they may not get them older. And good on you, DeSantis, for being the first governor in the country to not only stand behind this, but to look down the faces, stare down the progressive media and tell them to go pound salt.
Officially entitled Parental Rights in Education, it forces school districts to adopt procedures that, quote, reinforce the fundamental right of parents to make decisions regarding the upbringing and control of their children. That includes making school districts notify parents if there are changes to the student's mental, emotional, or physical health or well-being, not encouraging students to withhold information from parents, allowing parents to access their child's student records, letting parents refuse any health care services offered by the school, and getting parental permission before administering any health screening or well-being questionnaire. The bill also forces schools to respond to parent concerns within a week and resolve those issues within a month. If the school can't or won't, parents can escalate those concerns to the state for a resolution, or they can sue.
And so if you want to look up and read the entirety of the bill as I did, it's HB 1557. It's called the Parental Rights in Education. But maybe you haven't heard that because most of the media around the nation has been calling it the Don't Say Gay bill. And does it say anywhere in that bill the word gay? No, it does not. But of course, we're going to spin to make a certain narrative. And Governor Ron DeSantis decided to call out one reporter.
I'm asking you to tell me what's in the bill because you are pushing false narratives. It doesn't matter what critics say.
Well, it says it bans classroom instruction on sexual identity and gender orientation.
For who? For grades pre-K through 3. So 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds, 7-year-olds. And the idea that you wouldn't be honest about that and tell people what it actually says, it's why people don't trust people like you, because you peddle false narratives. And so we disabuse you of those narratives. And we're going to make sure that parents are able to send their kid to kindergarten without having some of this stuff injected into their school curriculum.
And he's exactly right, because any adult who's using their brain would understand, why are we peddling any sexual anything?
The implication seems to be because we're not specifically talking about gay issues means that we're somehow pushing straight issues. None of that stuff is that you would think that they would. It's starting neutral. Let's wait till 3rd grade before we begin to introduce any sexuality in the classroom. And that's not what lefties in this country, including a lot of celebrities, see when they hear this.
And the simple fact that Ron DeSantis called people out then obviously makes Ron DeSantis now the bad guy, which he has been, I guess, for a while. But I did enjoy the fact that he was speaking at the Strawberry Festival, because I just learned that it's strawberry season there in Florida, so enjoy your strawberries, everyone. But back to the point of Florida making common sense laws, and the fact that they have to even make this, that's where we're at, where we have to make this a law, is we have to like spell it out for these people, because otherwise they will take your children and sexualize them in every which way possible, except maybe heterosexual sex, but we still don't want them doing that. So again, until 3rd grade, just let them be kids. And it even says within the bill that classroom instruction by school personnel or third parties, third parties, Planned Parenthood, on sexual orientation or gender identity may not occur in kindergarten through grade 3 or in a manner that is not age appropriate or developmentally appropriate. That's a kicker right there. For students in accordance with state standards. How can anyone disagree with that? But they are.
The reason that we're in this predicament is because the progressive left can't agree to it. Their entire paradigm, their entire program for what American children will be when they grow up starts at 2 and 3 and 4 years old. And if you don't give them that thorough grounding before they're even old enough to think abstractly, if you don't have it drilled into their head, you don't have them marching in kindergarten with their Black Lives Matter sign, or by the time they're 4 or 5 years old, they're not already questioning their own gender, then how are you going to be able to pull them through the rest of the curriculum?
With all the censorship taking place on social media platforms, we've made it easy to keep up with your favorite content. Simply download the Freedom Project Media app in your app store. Get access to 18 new videos a week, plus thousands of archived shows, lecture series, and educational animations. Download the Freedom Project Media app on your Apple TV, Roku, tablet, or phone, and make sure you allow for notifications to keep you informed.
Disney went ahead and stuck its Mickey Mouse ears where it didn't belong and decided that, we're Disney World, we're Disneyland, Disney everything. We're going to get involved in the parental rights in education bill. We're going to express our opinion on it. And so the CEO, Bob Chapek, told shareholders that he actually called Ron DeSantis to express Disney's disappointment and concern about the bill we are talking about. Now, as Chapek said, the governor heard our concerns and agreed to meet with me and LGBTQ+ members of our senior team in Florida to discuss ways to address them. And that the, Florida bill being passed was not what many of us were hoping for, especially our LGBTQ+ employees. While we have been strong supporters of the community for decades, I understand that many are upset that we did not speak out against the bill. We were opposed to the bill from the outset, but we chose not to take a public position on it because we thought we could be more effective working behind the scenes, engaging directly with lawmakers on both sides of the aisle, and I'm guessing they just forgot to put in there, and just indoctrinating the children through all of our own products. But now they had to actually come out and say it out loud.
So you're telling me, Mr. Chapek, because your LGBTQ employees, which I would imagine is probably what, 10, 12%, even that of your whole Disney enterprise there, they're unhappy with their boss because you're not inserting yourself in their politics? Are you kidding me? Is this like workers of McDonald's now, right? Getting the country to decide that, hey, you don't share our vegetarian concerns, so maybe we should stop making Big Macs. This is stupid. Just because a small percentage of your employees think that it's okay to teach gay and lesbian ideology to 5-year-olds doesn't mean you, as the corporate head, need to get involved. Why are you so afraid of what such a small minority of your employees are going to do and ignore what the quiet remainder of them see, that this is none of their business? But this is the way it goes. Notice how you never see it go the other way. If you can give me one example of a major corporation sticking their head into some legislation because it's not conservative enough, well, then we can talk.
And Ron DeSantis actually actually said, Disney, companies like Disney, maybe you should just shh.
And I also think that if you have companies like a Disney that are going to say and criticize parents' rights, they're going to criticize the fact that we don't want transgenderism in kindergarten and first grade classrooms, if that's the hill that they're going to die on, then how do they possibly explain lining their pockets with their relationship from the Communist Party of China? Because that's what they do, and they make a fortune, and they don't say a word about the really brutal practices that you see over there at the hands of the CCP. And so in Florida, our policy is going to be based on the best interest of Florida citizens, not on the musing of corporations.
Mic drop. He did miss an opportunity, though. He said if it's going to be the hill they die on, when it clearly will be the splash mountain they die in, because we're talking about Disney, everyone. But here's what happened. So Ron DeSantis says these things because obviously Walt Disney World and all that is headquartered in Florida. And so then Chapek comes out and is like inserting the Mickey Mouse ears. And then we have the response of what Chapek actually said from Christina Pashaw, who's the spokesman for Governor Ron DeSantis, and said, Disney contacted our office today to speak with the governor. This is the first time we have heard from Disney regarding HB 1557, obviously, again, the bill we've been talking about. The governor did take the call from Mr. Chapek, and the governor's position has not changed. No in-person meeting has been scheduled yet, and Disney is known as a family-friendly company, or at least it used to be, that creates wholesome entertainment for kids. The same Florida parents who take their families to Disney also support parental rights in education because they do not want their young children exposed to inappropriate content about sex and gender theory at school. We expect Mr. Chapek will carefully consider their concerns.
Pretty sure he won't, because better to piss off 85% of your workforce who aren't going to do anything than the 7% who are activists. But let me just give you a little clarity on this. He's exactly right. In China, children, Disney-age children, are working 20 hours a week in sweatshops to make NBA basketballs and uniforms and tennis shoes. No one cares. Not LeBron James, not the NBA, not Disney. They don't care about that. Meanwhile, on the other hand, we got our boxers in a bunch because we're not forcing theory. Let's think of what we're talking about here. Forcing gender theory into classrooms where children are way too young to think theoretically. It is brainwashing, it is mind control, but this is the current state of situation.
And one of those employees from Disney who had their, I guess, boxers in a bunch is what we're going with, is Mark Hamill. I guess he technically is an employee, whatever. Mark Hamill, who used to be Luke Skywalker in the now Disney series of Star Wars, he's one of the wokest of the woke. And so, to fight this bill, he just had to say it. He just had to say gay. Tweeting it 69 times, because, get it, 69 times, the word gay. And he was so proud of himself. And of course, he's not the only one, because that's why we have everyone in the news calling it the Don't Say Gay bill.
Today's show is sponsored by our friends at MyPillow. Save up to 66% on all items at MyPillow.com when you use the code Dr. Duke. That's DRDUKE. Support this show by supporting a great American company.
Now, while all this is happening, the legislature was also busy passing the Stop Woke Act, which was originally introduced back in December. And Ron DeSantis, the governor again, is expected to have a sweet victory on this one, because this legislation is actually banning critical race theory in all public schools. And not shockingly, it passed on partisan lines in the legislatures of both chambers, actually. And if and when this does become law, it affects K-12 and universities and colleges in the state. It was House Bill 7, Individual Freedom, and it was designed to expand Florida's civil rights laws and protections according to its text and supporters. Now, critics obviously claim that it would instead silence some parts of history from being included in Florida's educational curriculum, because as we know, anytime critical race theory gets brought up, first off, it is not taught in K-12 schools. It is not. It is just a theory that is taught in law schools. So not in K-12. Anywhere in the whole country. Except everywhere in the whole country. And now proposals have been put forth for the bill that when they were, debating it, I guess, they had wanted, people were just throwing anything they could to try and bamboozle this whole thing. And so there were amendments to add gender identity and sexual identity to those protected against discrimination, leaving the term ethnicity in the affected statute instead of changing it to color, leaving health education instruction on mental and emotional health instead of removing it, and of course adding LGBTQ+ to the list of racial, ethnic, and religious topics for celebrating diversity rather than just tolerance and all that. Nope. Didn't get it.
Yeah, and let's be very clear about this. This is a big victory, DeSantis. And the idea, if there is no critical race theory in Florida public schools, then what are the left going pajamas over? Why are they upset? You should sit back and be grateful that the governor's not coming for other actual aspects of your LGBTQ platform. This is a ghost. He's waving a red flag at a ghost, right? I mean, there's no critical race theory. So let him, in fact, extend this for 2 years. Keep extending this for 2 years, right? Keep letting him pretend that it's there, because you win. He's going to take up all his time on something that's not there. Or is it possible the reason you are so upset and out of sorts is because you know, progressives, it is there, and it is there replacing actual education. And that itself, the fact that it is there, is promoting left-wing progressivism via critical race theory in the public schools. Seems to me that you wouldn't be this angry at Governor DeSantis shooting at dummies, shooting blanks, shooting at an empty target. Seems to me that wouldn't bother you unless it hit a little closer to home. And you know the dirty little secret. Critical race theory, it's there. It's there in kindergarten. It's there in middle school. It's there in high school. I've got 150 slides on a way too long PowerPoint program that I take around the country showing people. It's there. It's there. Everybody knows it's there. You can pretend it's not there, but it is. So maybe get Mark Hamill on the phone and he can write CRT 69 times, just like he wrote gay, 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 gay 69 times. And we can ask him, why do you pick the number 69?
Now, the actual bill states and spells out what it is about discrimination, and they're saying that any discrimination leveled toward any individual includes any training or lessons that as a condition of employment, of membership, certification, licensing, credentialing, or passing an examination. Any and all that is considered to be the discrimination. Or if it espouses, promotes, advances, inculcates, or compels such individual to believe any of these following concepts. And we're not going to go through all of them, but here's some of them. Members of one race, color, sex, or national origin are morally superior to members of another, or that an individual by virtue of his or her race, color, sex, or national origin is inherently racist, sexist, or oppressive, whether consciously or unconsciously, or that an individual's moral character or status as either privileged or oppressed is necessarily determined by his or her race, color, sex, or national origin. And it goes on. You can see that they have spelled this out in 8 clear bullet points as to what it means to have discrimination leveled against individuals.
And everything that you see there is everything that the left is doing to your children and to your teachers via critical race theory. And even better, we have the spawn of DeSantis. We now have a Georgia bill that would keep sex and gender ideology out of their grade schools. Oh, can't you just see Stacey Abrams wallowing around in agony, and ban critical race theory too?
I mean, Stacey Abrams is governor, so she's going to have a lot of work on her hands. No, she's not governor?
No, she thinks she is.
Oh, that's what it was. Okay, got it. So their bill, it basically takes parts of exactly what Florida's doing in their parental rights and education bill, which we have been talking about all show here, and then it also puts in some of the CRT stuff. So the Georgia Senate bill is 613, Common Humanity in Private Education Act, and it would prohibit schools from teaching that any sex, race, ethnicity, color, or natural origin is inherently superior or inferior. It adopts language similar to other Republican-backed bills that have taken aim at critical race theory across the country. And the bill also prohibits teaching that anyone is inherently racist, sexist, or oppressive, whether consciously or unconsciously. It's almost like that's the words we just said for the Florida bill. So that's why it's important to take a look at what is happening in Florida, because it's hopefully going to go across the country.
And rhino governors in places like Utah and Arkansas and Wyoming who have banned similar views or have banned laws that would stop boys interfering with girl sports. Grow up, shed your rhino horn, either get with the program these gentlemen are going through in Georgia, Florida, or just do us a favor and resign.
And going along off of that, these rhino governors, all the rhinos everywhere, the one in Georgia, the bill that they actually just introduced, was introduced on the last day. So it couldn't have been actually considered in the committee because the committee wasn't meeting on that day. So basically what people are trying to do now, the rhinos and all of them, is use this for campaigning. So.
It's time for some real education. What would it look like? How would it be if we could get back to actually studying stuff instead of politics? This week, we're showcasing our lecture series, another one of our lecture series. We have a series of lectures that we've done on wonderful topics. We're going to keep producing more. For years, we've been putting these multi-part lectures designed to go deeper into topics that few people might talk about. Today, we're giving you a sample, kicking things off by taking a sneak peek at our lecture series entitled Shakespeare 400. Shakespeare on the 400th anniversary of his death back in 2016. Death, Remembrance, and Resurrection. Take a look. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Freedom Project Media extravaganza. This time it's Shakespeare 400, Death, Remembrance, and Resurrection. This year marks the 400th anniversary of Shakespeare's death, and we're very pleased to bring a unique focus on the great playwright. We're going to look at his life, his career, his writings, his philosophy, his theology, all through the lens of death and remembrance and time. So this is an important day for us. It's an important year. 400 years ago, the bard died in England. It's interesting. Shakespeare was born in 1564, the very year that Michelangelo died in Rome. And Shakespeare died in 1616 within 24 to 48 hours that the great Spanish novelist Cervantes died. And so you've got bookended around Shakespeare's life, the greatest Spanish novelist in history, and you've got the greatest Italian Roman Catholic painter in history. And what ties these great Renaissance artists together? Well, one of the key themes, the key focuses of their art, all three of them, was death. And death in particular was the great leveler. Death was the great equalizer among men. And then time was the agent of death. And then ultimately memory, the ability through art to create lasting legacies in poetry and painting and sculpture. That's a kind of immortality. And here we are 400 years, 4 centuries after the death of Shakespeare. He still is the world's most famous playwright, the world's most famous poet. His movies have been adapted there are Lego versions of his movies, there are claymation versions of his movies. His plays have been translated into about 150 different languages, 5 continents his plays have been performed on. The Shakespeare industry is more thriving than it's ever been. And so, looking at Shakespeare from the perspective of death, let's start with a little bit of background, some demographic information to help make sense of all of this. In 1500, England was the most backward country in Europe, and English was the most backward language in Europe. The English spoken in 1500 was pretty crude, it was unrefined. There had, with the exception of Chaucer, Geoffrey Chaucer in the 14th century, there really hadn't been any outstanding English poetry, any outstanding English art or drama, lasting, enduring art. The language was very, very weak in that regard. The Italian language, the Spanish language, the French language, these other vernacular languages of Europe had produced great art, the Italians and Dante, the French and the troubadour poets. But England was a little bit behind. By the time you get to 1600, right in the wheelhouse of Shakespeare's career, England had become a major metropolitan center, and the city of London had become one of, if not the largest city in all of Europe. The population of London grew by 400%. Between 1500 and 1600, staggering. But when we look back today, we consider the size of major cities today. London was probably the biggest city in all of Europe, and it had about 150 to 200,000 people, which for us is a relatively small suburb, isn't it? But thinking about what London was before it became so built up, that 150,000 to 200,000 people in 1600 in London lived cramped on top of each other. The London of Shakespeare's heyday contained about 150,000 to 200,000 souls. And here's the interesting thing. Life expectancy for the regularly healthy and the relatively modestly well-off in Shakespeare's day, life expectancy was a total of 42 years. And for those who lived below the poverty line, which was most of Londoners, that was about 25 years you could expect to live.
I do want to take a moment now to thank our Patriot Club members for making this series possible and all of the other series. And if you're not already a member, please do consider joining our Patriot Club with a $99 gift to support educational lectures like Shakespeare 400, Death, Remembrance, and Resurrection. Now, all 4 episodes of this series can be seen for free $99. That's FREE 99 at freedomproject.com and our Freedom Project app, so make sure you download that. All right, now before we go, let's show some good love to our Patriot Club members. And today, this special shout out is going to Sally from Walla Walla, Washington. Sally, thank you so much for supporting us.
And that wraps up this show. For Freedom Project, I'm Dr. Duke. She's Katie. Until next time, Waka Waka, stay educated. Bye, friends.